You're listening to the 3-Point Conversion.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into another episode of the 3-Point Conversion with your hosts, Queasy, Andrew, and myself, Jeremy. Today we are going to go over the NFC West. That includes the 49ers, Seahawks, Rams, and Cardinals. So Andrew's going to take two teams, as we have no specialist on hand to join us today. So he'll take the 49ers, and he'll start out, and then he'll end up with the Cardinals. I'll be taking the Seahawks, and then Queasy will be taking the Rams. So before we get started with everything, let's go ahead and take us a shot.
Episode 4?
I got mine pre-poured.
Pre-poured. I'm drinking a little bit of Johnny Walker here with the Wolf.
Pre-poured. It's not the same, buddy. It's not the
Ooh,
same.
how about
My shot is fresh. It's fresh. Need a fresh shot.
Fresh shot.
Fresh shot.
Everybody ready?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
That'll mix nicely with that Taco Bell.
Oh, God. Why'd do that to yourself?
How's that Game of Thrones?
Oh, man, it's so good. So good.
Here's what's happening around the league. Time for news.
All right, so we'll get started with some news, interesting tidbits, or anything that we have before we get started. So, Andrew, why don't you start us out with that? You got anything?
Oh, yeah. I tweeted this morning about the Patriots. I know I've talked about them every episode, and, you know, the will they, won't they with Brady and this dance they're doing with all the free agency quarterbacks. This morning they're talking about looking at Andy Dalton if they can't retain Tom Brady. I can't even say it with a straight face.
God.
It's terrible. I have no opinion on this that's positive, so I'm just not even going to say anything about the Red Rocket unless you guys got anything. You know, it's just a rumor floating around, I guess. But Red Rocket.
I can see that as the best choice for them if Brady does leave, I guess. You know, a better. I mean, what else is it going to get? A rookie?
Oh man, I'd take Mariota. I'd take Mariota any day over Red Rocket.
I wouldn't.
I don't know. I think the Red Rocket, old Dalton, gets a bad rap. I don't think he's been terrible there, but
he's had one good season.
A lot of that's not his fault, but we've covered a lot of that.
Exactly.
Old Red Rocket. I still think, for the record, that he's going to the Bears. Anyway,
The Bears.
Queasy, what do you got, buddy? You got any news?
I actually tweeted out, I think it was yesterday, the debate going on right now whether the Redskins should take Young with the second pick or actually Tua with the second pick. To me, I've heard so many different things. It seems logical to take Young, but I've heard so many people say Tua.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. I've heard people talking about it, and it's so hard to know if it's just like trade bait, you know, somebody, if they really wanted to trade up so they get a little something extra because they know they're not going to take him, and maybe they do take him. I know they don't love Haskins.
But, you know, Haskins actually started coming on the last two games of the season. Of course, that's not a big, you know, look at, but you drafted the guy. You got to give him a chance.
They gave him a chance. He was awful.
The thing is, though, is that the coaching regime that's in there now is not the guys that drafted him. So whether or not they feel the same way, I don't know.
That's true.
I guess we'll find out. Well, what I've got is a trade that won't become official for a couple of days, apparently, but it's A.J. Boye from the Jags to the Broncos for a 4th-round draft pick. So I know that the Jags needed some cap space. I think that creates a little bit for them, and it doesn't really help their secondary, though. So,
no,
anyway.
I guess it's up in the air what they do with their cap space now.
I don't know. I have no idea.
Sign that quarterback with the big old mustache.
I've heard, you know, they're trying to trade. They're trying to trade Foles. And they said they're going to start till Gardner Minshew.
Yeah.
Minshew.
No. See, I came up with the Manshew. We got to keep this going for the podcast. Manshew. Gardner Minshew. That dude in college kept a flask in his freaking pants. He drank on the sideline. That's a dude.
He's like a walking story, man. I like that guy.
That's a dude. He throws like Uncle Rico. Yes, this is your quarterback.
I remember last year in the season, I saw an NFL little excerpt, might have been ESPN, and it had Uncle Rico come down, and he was hanging out with old Manshew. So that's pretty good.
Oh, I didn't see that.
All right. Well, before we get started, before you get started on the 49ers, I just want to remind everybody to subscribe. Make sure you give us a follow on Twitter and check out the podcast anywhere you can. I know we're up on several different formats, Google Podcast, so several others, Spotify, et cetera. Hopefully we'll leave a link so you guys can follow.
Anchor.fm.
Yep, Anchor. Yep. Yeah, we're on Anchor. That's a pretty good little site. So just give us a check out. Tell your friends. So anyway, Andrew, with that said, you start us off with the 49ers. Let's go.
Yes, sir. Let's get started on those 49ers. And what can you not say about this team, man? They killed it this season. And they came back from 2017 where they went 6-10, the 2018 where they went 4-12 to go 13-3 this past season and become the NFC champions. Asking a lot of this team. But when you look at their 2018 season, they were plagued with injuries. Like, it was just so bad. The running back they picked up out of free agency, Jerick McKinnon, he tore his ACL. Then I remember Jimmy G went down in Game 3 and was benched for the rest of the season. I mean, it was just terrible. So, I mean, like, some people maybe can say they saw this coming, but maybe not to this extent, I don't think. Their head coach is Kyle Shanahan. We all have heard this name many times. This was his third season as the head coach for the 49ers. He came from Atlanta as an offensive coordinator.
Say it again.
Atlanta. That team that
Atlanta.
That team that's laid down since he left.
Wow.
Wow.
Wish I had another shot right now.
Go ahead and take you another one.
That's all for you, buddy. Pretty much any time we say the Falcons, usually Queasy over here like
on that.
just like Ben was with the Lions. Whew. They don't have a straight offensive coordinator. I think that Kyle Shanahan really has his hands in that a lot. They've got a passing game coordinator in Mike LaFleur, a run game coordinator in Mike McDaniel. You know that dude's busy. Robert Saleh, I believe that's how you pronounce that. That's their defensive coordinator. So his defense this season had 48 sacks, 10 to Arik Armstead, and 9 to Nick Bosa, which that's pretty good. Had 87 tackles for a loss, 16 to Bosa. I'm going to say his name a lot.
You should.
Had 93 quarterback hits, 25 for Bosa. They allowed 23 passing touchdowns versus 11 rushing touchdowns. So, obviously, they were better on the ground defending the run this whole season. They don't really have any glaring issues to speak of. I mean, like, this team was probably the best or the most well-rounded team in the NFL this season. And honestly, they deserved and they fought for everything, they earned. They really did. Maybe if I had to choose a weakness for this team, I would say maybe it's at receiver. You can't really say quarterback. I mean, every time Jimmy G was asked to step up, he really did. He did everything that was asked of him. I mean, they leaned heavily on the run game, so there were a lot of games where he just really wasn't needed, and he just wasn't necessary, and just kind of like, okay, well, you're on the back burner. Throw 5-10 passes and go sit on the bench, you're good. But as of right now, they've got about $27 million in cap space for 2020, which it's just not a whole lot. But they really don't have a whole lot of guys heading into free agency. They've got Emmanuel Sanders, which honestly I think they may look at cutting him and taking a wide receiver in the draft, letting him go because he was a big kickstarter for their team this season. But they really had a guy step up in Deebo Samuel. And I think you're always taking a risk when you're moving a guy from number 2 to number 1, but I think maybe he could make that jump, and hopefully they're looking at that. But if you let Manny Sanders go, you're saving a lot of money in this cap space because you know he's going to ask a lot. Their fullback, Kyle Juszczyk, you've got to re-sign this dude. He was basically like the cannonball fired through the hole that opened up all of your running lanes. You've got to have this guy back. Arik Armstead, their defensive end, I mentioned him. He had some pretty impressive stats this season. Matt Breida, their running back who pretty much came up out of nowhere. I mean, what can you say about this dude? But, I mean, like, honestly, like, they have so many good running backs on their roster. I mean, do you really need to spend the money and re-sign him? Could you take a running back later in the draft? I mean, what do you do? I'm not sure where they go on this one. Nick Mullins, their backup quarterback, we saw him play in 2018 whenever Jimmy G was injured. And, you know, he did pretty good. I think he would serve as a dependable backup. Probably wouldn't cost him too much to keep. Maybe he's a guy you hold on to. And Jeff Wilson, another one of the running backs, is also heading into free agency. So those are just the ones of note, the guys of note that they really need to maybe look twice at before letting them go. Now, their draft situation isn't ideal. They have one pick in the first round, pick number 31, since they lost that Super Bowl. And then they have 2 picks in round 5, 1 in round 6, and 2 in round 7. Like, wow. So they're going, 2, 3, and 4 and not taking a single dude, so I'm sure they'll make a trade in there somewhere. You can't go 3 rounds and not draft a dude.
Wow.
But I have my personal opinion. I think they'll, with that first pick in round 1 there, number 31 pick, I think they'll take Justin Jefferson out of LSU and they'll let Emmanuel Sanders go.
That'd be cool.
I think he'll still be on the board. I mean, that's going to save you a ton of money right there, and I think it's a good pick. And other than that, man, like I said, I really don't see any glaring needs for the team. I mean, I'm sure they're going to find ways to improve, but just looking at it, I don't see where. San Francisco has a run-first mentality with creative ways of shifting the offensive line and using the fullback to get backs upfield. They utilize a stable of backs who could boom or bust any given week. It's hard to pick who to start week in, week out. Jimmy G is a consistent mid-tier fantasy quarterback who can have big games in the right moments. As far as wide receiver, Emmanuel Sanders, as of right now, and Deebo Samuel are your dudes to look to. They made an impact most weeks, but, they weren't a guy you wanted to go out and start in a bad matchup. I think that good IDP options, just to throw this in there for this team, are, of course, Nick Bosa, Arik Armstead, assuming they re-sign him, and Fred Warner, their fullback. Linebacker.
Linebacker.
Forget, I'm distracted. The linebacker. Dude was a beast. And I think next season there might be a little bit of drop-off, but not much. I mean, maybe teams have had a chance to really look at him this offseason and plan for him, maybe really try to stop the run, and who knows what Jimmy G can do when he has to, when he's cut loose. So I'm giving them one more L, and I'm going to say they go 12-4.
Nice.
You guys have anything?
Yeah, I'll go first. So Raheem Mostert. So him or Breida, one, who's your top guy in that offense, and what do you think being a run-first offense and really known for their rushing attack, being tops in the league pretty much, who would you take, and what do you think their fantasy value is? Like, where would you put them in, like, top 10 or 11 to 20, somewhere in there?
You mean just between those two guys?
Just between the two. No
Okay.
Coleman.
Yeah,
Unless you want to throw Coleman in.
I was going to say, I think Coleman is the best back on their team. He had an issue with an injury this season, so I think it hurt his fantasy outlook for the rest of the season. Well, next season, looking at the draft. But I think he'd be a sneaky pick up late, like he was for me this past season, and he brought me a lot of points pretty early on until they started shuffling the running backs around, and you don't know who's going where. But if they do make this cut, they've got Jeff Wilson, who actually played in a number of games, and Matt Breida. I mean, if you let both of those guys go, you've still got Tevin Coleman. You've still got the guy they picked up in free agency. What was his name? I said it a minute ago.
Talking about McKinnon?
McKinnon, yeah, they picked up McKinnon 2 seasons ago, and he had a nasty injury, and he's just been sitting on the bench, just kind of waiting to come back. Who else they got back there?
They have
Mostert.
yeah,
Raheem Mostert. Yeah. I mean, really, what else do you need besides those 3 guys? I mean, and that still leaves plenty of work for Mostert and Tevin Coleman. So I don't know, man.
So do you like their backfield, or do you love their backfield?
I love their backfield. I love their backfield, but it's just deciding like which piece to use. Which piece to use? What's up, buddy?
I just lost a bet.
What? What was the bet?
I was pretty sure I was going to lose it anyway, but I'll take it.
What was the bet?
That you said that you would say something about loving their running backs.
Yeah.
And even though you didn't, and I kind of set myself up for it by asking you the question directly.
Oh, he was wanting to say it.
He wanted a shot. That's what it was.
Good job.
Yeah, man. Their backfield. It's just trying to decide who you're gonna start that week, really.
And I know that Mostert actually finished 17th overall in running backs, and with like 181, depending on your format, 181 and a half points. And Coleman was your next closest on the roster with 113 and a half. I know there were some injuries, and they always kind of shuffled around, but Mostert seemed to be the guy that came on late. I like him. I like him going in next season.
Well, that's the thing. Mostert did come on late, and if they make these cuts, then absolutely, I'm all for it. But man, if they decide to re-sign Matt Breida, I think Mostert is going to be way overvalued in next season's drafts because of the way everybody's going to remember the end of the season. Oh man, that was the dude. Yeah. He was killing it in the playoffs. He was killing it at the end of the season. This and that, and you're going to want to stay away from that. That's just going to be a wasted pick.
I guess it depends on the ADP, his average draft position. Surely it's not extremely high. I wouldn't take him over anybody like Ezekiel Elliott or Kamara or anybody like that, but I would take him if he falls to you at the right spot. But I don't like the fact that he's handcuffed with a couple other guys, though.
Well, I mean, it's like I always say, there's nobody that's undraftable if they fall to the right spot. So you can't say you're not going to draft so-and-so, you're not going to draft so-and-so. But The thing is, with anybody who does their research, they're seeing these stats on people last season, and they're, like I said, they're getting all excited about it, and they're getting overexcited, honestly. Not saying that he's not a good running back, but he's not in the right situation to be a good every week starting running.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's no workhorse, that's for sure.
No. Queasy, you got anything for me?
Twofold, kinda. I do like Emmanuel Sanders, but I know he's a vet now. Are you hoping, or do you think, I should say, that he may take a franchise-friendly contract just to stay there and try to win another championship with them, or the Super Bowl, I should say, with them?
With as good as the team is, it all depends on the personality of the player, because you got half the league sitting over here saying, well, yeah, I want the ring. That's what I want. That's what I came here for. This and that. But some of the guys they really like their money. So there's no telling with Emmanuel Sanders. I haven't done too much research on him personally. From what I've seen, though, he doesn't seem like he's an unreasonable dude. So maybe if he understands what they're trying to do and the cap space they're trying to work with, maybe he'll sign a short deal for a little bit less money, hoping to get there soon, back to the championship.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man, I couldn't tell you.
And second fold, do you actually think Garoppolo is a franchise quarterback? I know it was questionable a lot of the season, but of course at the end of the season you see the results, but it was questionable throughout the season.
I'm not gonna say I don't think he's a franchise quarterback, because he did everything that was asked of him, and I mean, like, he's not Patrick Mahomes out here putting up 400 yards every game and throwing 15 touchdowns, but he fits their system very well. I mean, like I said, we're going to see how this transfers next season when everybody kind of sits back and says, okay, this is what San Francisco wants to do. How are we going to stop it? Yeah. So I think we'll probably have our answer probably 3 or 4 games in the next season. But as of right now, I would say he's a good fit for what they need, and he's got the face of a franchise quarterback. So as of right now, let's leave him there.
Definitely.
You guys got anything else?
Yeah, I just got one. I got one little tidbit. So as far as Emmanuel Sanders goes, I know he may want to chase that ring, but he did win a Super Bowl with Denver, so he does have him a ring. Why stop at one, right? But
Yeah.
he might be a candidate to go more money somewhere, Anyway, just to throw that out there.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's no telling what he's ultimately going to decide to do. Because really, I mean, you know that they're going to want him back, so the ball's really in his court. Yeah. But we'll see. Probably here in a couple of weeks, I'm sure something will come out.
Definitely,
I'm sure. All right, so I'll go ahead and take over. I have the Seahawks, the Seattle Seahawks. They went 11-5 in the regular season, made it to the playoffs. Overall, they were 12-6. They beat the Eagles in a wild card round and eventually got put out by the Packers. They are head coached by Pete Carroll, veteran in the league. A lot of people forgot, they kind of when he came in the league that he came from USC, but he actually coached the Patriots. And coached other places before that in the NFL before he went to college and then made the jump back. His defensive coordinator is Ken Norton Jr. Offensive coordinator is Brian Schottenheimer. So Pete Carroll. So this dude, I like him a lot. He's a player's coach. Mm-hmm. He's actually 68 years old, which you wouldn't think seeing him on the sideline. He looks a lot younger than that. Yeah. But he's 68. His overall head coach record in the NFL is 144, 99, and 1. Of course, he won the Super Bowl with the Seahawks, Super Bowl 48. Here's a fun fact for you. He's one of only 3 coaches to win a Super Bowl and a national championship.
Wow.
Can you guys guess the other 2? Not to put you on the spot.
How far back are we going here, buddy?
We're going back a little bit. You got to go back a little bit. I'll tell you that both of them are Cowboy coaches.
Yeah, I can see. Well, the one that came from the Miami.
Jimmy Johnson. And the other one's Mike Zimmer. So that's just a little bit of trivia there that I found interesting. It's only 3 have ever done it, and he's one of them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he runs an aggressive style of offense. He's kind of known for his trick plays and going for it on 4th down. Another fun little thing is when he was at Southern Cal. At Southern Cal, they used to call him Big Balls Pete because he would go for it on 4th. And yeah, this is legit. So the band used to chant it, and then it kind of went into the student section and alumni, and they would chant that when it was 4th down when he was at USC. Big Balls Pete. So he'd go for it on 4th down.
Sounds like some hot sauce.
It's pretty awesome.
Big Balls Pete.
Big Balls Pete, man. Big Balls Pete. He's credited for masterminding the defense known as the Legion of Boom when he first got to Seattle, and I think everybody kind of remembers that really great defense. Uh-huh. Right now, he utilizes more of the bend don't break philosophy in defense. He likes to try to keep everybody in front of him, eliminate the big plays. Let the offense kind of, dictate the game and let the defense just kind of, not break. Let's see. That's basically all I got to say about Pete Carroll. I had quite a bit on him, and I don't want to go too far in it. He's a really interesting coach. I know everybody that's played for him loves him just about, and he seems to get stuff done. Issues that I have with Seattle, mainly, they're kind of like what the 49ers were and all these teams that went real deep in the playoffs, because they did. They were really bit by the injury bug, which kind of screwed them at the end of the year. It was kind of surprising that they did. They actually had the chance to get home field advantage in a bye week if they could win their final 2 games, and they lost them to the Cardinals and the 49ers, 2 teams in their division. So, of course, the Niners ended up getting home field and went to the Super Bowl. Yeah. So as far as the injuries go, they got down to their 4th string tight end, their 4th halfback, their 3rd guard, their backup center, and Chris Carson ended up getting hurt. Rashad Penny got hurt. C.J. Prosise was hurt. That's when they brought back Marshawn Lynch, if you remember, which he did okay in a pinch, but he's definitely not the pretty boy Lynch that I know and think of when he was tearing it up back there. beast mode. As far as that, there's not many things to go over as far as like major issues with the Seahawks. I know that Trey Flowers, their corner, he got beat kind of consistently, and they're hoping that he can make a next step. Otherwise, they're going to have to try to do something about their secondary there. They do have a lot of free agents, most notably and probably the top free agent as far as defense goes, and maybe the top overall, in Jadeveon Clowney. I know he's going to take a lot of money to bring back, and we'll go over that here in a second. You also have another defensive end that they have there, Ezekiel Ansah. You got a couple defensive tackles, Jaron Reed, Al Woods, and Quentin Jefferson. So really their front four, if they don't play it just right, they could lose their entire defensive line starters. So that could be real bad for them if they're wanting to make it back deep into the playoffs. Just a couple of others of note of free agents are Michael Kendricks, George Fant, Mike Lupati, the guard, their starting guard, Marshawn Lynch, which they signed him to a one-year deal, so I don't think he's coming back. I mean, Geno Smith, you guys remember him? He's a former starter for the Jets at quarterback. He's their backup there. He's a free agent. Luke Wilson, tight end, C.J. Brosice, and another tight end, Jacob Hollister, just to name a few. As far as what they might do in the draft, they've got the 27th overall pick in the first round. One of the more entertaining things I saw was round one. They had Zach Bond, the edge rusher from Wisconsin. So he's a pretty good guy from Wisconsin. He had 14 and a half tackles for loss, 12 sacks. So he's a guy that's real explosive, did real well in the combine. So that wouldn't be a bad pickup for them. Another person I've seen that they might go after first pick instead of edge rusher would be defensive tackle. So Mike Blaylock is what they've got penciled in from TCU. There's a couple different things. I think most of it's going to depend on how they handle their free agency situation, on how they go with draft, obviously. But round two, what I found interesting in a certain mock draft was taking Jonathan Taylor at pick 59. So he's the running back from Wisconsin. I don't think he's going to fall that far because he had a really, really good combine. So he's probably moved up on a lot of people's lists. He's in my top 5 running back. I think he is with most. But, running back's a crazy position. Some people might look at the Seattle backfield and say, well, why would you even draft a running back? But you've got Chris Carson, who's been there for 3 years. 2 of his seasons have been season-ending injuries he's had there with Chris Carson, and he's their number 1 back. And then C.J. Brosice, I don't love that guy. And Rashad Penny also ended his season with injuries. So that's a lot of injuries. So if they're not sold on one of these guys, if they're real afraid with them being injury prone, they could definitely bring in a running back. It may not be Jonathan Taylor, but if it was, that would be a steal for them.
Oh, definitely.
I'm not going to go into the rest of them, but they had some interesting picks there. As far as free agents, so they definitely have to re-sign Jadeveon Clowney, in my opinion. You need that guy. He's a beast. He is going to eat up a lot of their cap space. So they only have $44.6 million in their cap space, which really isn't a ton, especially since he's going to eat up a ton of it. But they have a couple of veterans that they could end up cutting and releasing, and I think they're probably looking at doing that with at least a few of them. They've got Justin Britt, their center. That would free up to the tune of $8.25 million. He's set to be paid the 3rd highest paid center in the league. So whether or not he is that good, I mean, you could argue whatever you want to do. I don't know. He is a good center, but whether or not you want to make him that high paid, I don't know. You got KJ Wright, linebacker. I think, in my personal opinion, you should bring him back, but he's on the last year of his deal. He's set to get paid $5 million. Ed Dixon, tight end. I'm pretty sure they let him go. That's $3 million. Bradley McDougald, he's their starting strong safety. He's in the tune of $4 million, somewhere in there. And DJ Fluker, guard, $2 million. So if you cut a few of those guys, I think you could bring him back and still make some moves. In the offseason, I know that they already signed Greg Olson at tight end, so that would have him there with Will Dissly. Whether or not you like Greg Olson, he's not a bad guy to have at tight end, especially with old Russell Wilson there. And let's see. After that, just a couple of fantasy guys to go over. Russell Wilson, like I said, he finished quarterback 5 overall. I think he's definitely a guy to look for at quarterback position, especially going forward. I wouldn't mind having him back there. I know a lot of people like to go like running back, wide receiver, and then kind of look at quarterbacks later on. So I think he's a sneaky guy to get that you could probably take not extremely late in rounds, but he's not going to be the first few quarterbacks taken. Lamar Jackson being probably the first one over there. Chris Carson ended up 11th overall, and that's him missing a couple of games being hurt. So whether or not he comes back healthy, he's another guy that might be a little sneaky. Greg Olsen did finish 14th overall in fantasy as a tight end. I think that value just goes up with Russell Wilson tossing it to him. Tyler Lockett's their best receiver. He finished wide receiver 16 in fantasy. And then you got DK Metcalf, which you could argue might be the new best receiver. He came on as a rookie. He finished 30th overall, but I think he just gets better. Dude's a beast. And Rashad Penny, I know there for a while people were thinking that Rashad Penny was going to take Chris Carson's job. He finished 53, but he got hurt. A couple IDP guys that you would have would be Bobby Wagner. If you're linebacker, you would be remiss not to take a look at him as your first linebacker off the board. He's everywhere. He makes a ton of tackles. Trey Flowers, even though he got beat quite a bit, like I mentioned earlier, that's kind of what you want to look for in a corner. You don't really want that shutdown corner in fantasy because you want somebody that's making tackles and making plays on the ball. So he actually finished cornerback number 2. Another linebacker, KJ Wright, finished 13th. Jadeveon Clowney finished 23rd overall with defensive end. So a lot of that Clowney stuff, he might not have finished very high in edge rushers as far as fantasy goes, but he gets double teamed a lot and he puts a lot of quarterback pressures on the quarterback. So when he's not getting home, he's still making a huge impact. And like I said, I think they need to re-sign him. Having said that, I think that they'll do better than what they did. I honestly think if they didn't have the injuries, that they would have been right there with the 49ers, and they may have been able to make that Super Bowl run. Like I said, they finished 11-5 in the regular season. I think they can go 13-3. I really do. With as long as they shore up what they've got at free agencies, who they got coming back, and draft relatively well, there's no reason, as long as they can stay healthy, to think they'll go 13-3 and finish tops of this division. I really think that. What you got, Queasy? You got something for me, bud?
What you're just saying that you think they'll finish that high even without upgrading at their running back position?
I do. I personally loved Chris Carson. I had him on my fantasy teams. I got him really late. Not even speaking fantasy-wise, like he did really well for them when he was healthy. And the fact that they had a couple other guys behind him, yeah, I really do. I like their backfield.
And now they have Olsen, so that's Super Bowl or bust.
That's right. Now, Olsen, I know he's getting on in years, and I think they only signed him to a 1-year deal. I'd have to double check, but he's just one more outlet weapon. I mean, I don't think Greg Olsen's going to go out there and be like a Gronk or anything, but down at the goal line, he's that extra look. I know he can block pretty well, and he's your outlet guy. If Russell Wilson's getting pressured, and Olsen's down there blocking, he can release. Yeah. He can be out there, and he can get those possessions for him.
I think he will do well.
Yeah, better than Disley and the other guys they've got right now. So, Come on, Andrew. Throw your hate, baby. Throw your hate.
Will Disley. That dude came on strong before his injury. He was killing it. He is a receiving tight end through and through. He's a big dude. You telling me Greg Olsen's going to start over him? I don't see it.
I think what you'll see is I think you'll see 2 tight ends on the field at a time, and it'll be both of them.
I was about to say 2 tight end sets. Maybe you see Greg Olsen throw a block and Disley go up for the catch. I mean, I see a lot. No, not vice versa.
Either way, really.
I see a lot of fantasy value for Disley. I think this next season, everybody's gonna forget about him. Everybody's gonna sleep on him because he got injured. But I think he's a dude. So
he is a dude. He's a big dude.
I was also going to talk about your running back situation here. I know before everybody got injured. Before Chris Carson got injured, I know at the beginning of the season he had a bad case of the fumble bug, and then before he got injured, it was coming back to bite him again. Do you think there's a potential for who was it, Rashad Penny, to take over the starting job?
Yeah, I think like with most running backs that you have, it's whoever has the hand, and I think that's what you saw with Seattle a lot. A lot of coaches, if you see a guy that's got the fumble bug or whatever, they'll get pulled pretty quickly because turnovers, especially at that position, are not something that you want to suffer through. And when you've got a talented guy like Rashad Penny behind him, yeah, you definitely could see that happening. But I think Chris Carson kind of fixed a lot of that issue before he got hurt. That's why he finished higher than him in fantasy. I like Chris Carson. I like him a lot. Rashad Penny is that guy, and he could definitely take over at any time. That's just that position. But we'll see.
Well, I do think that will definitely affect his fantasy draft stock.
Sure.
People not knowing, okay, well, is this guy going to be the starting guy? Is he going to be doing a 50-50 split with Rashad Penny? What are the chances that he gets pulled after 2 games because he's had too many fumbles? I mean, that's going to affect it for me. I mean, I know he had really good numbers, and he looked good whenever he was out there, playing well and not fumbling the ball. He looked really good. He had impressive numbers.
Yeah.
But that'll tempt me to look the other way when somebody else takes him.
Yeah, so, as far as like average draft position, I don't know exactly how high. I haven't done my rankings for fantasy yet 'cause it's still really early. But I don't think that I would put him top 15. He'd probably be somewhere between the 16 to 25 range, and Penny would probably be right in there with him. So, if you see somebody taking him really high because they think that he's going to be a great running back, let them take that chance. But whichever one goes, one of them, whoever they think is going to be the starter, a handcuff value is very high with the other, probably Rashad Penny. So,
well, I'm not saying there's
like
definitely not
late.
potential there. I mean, he's a hoss, but he's a risky hoss.
I mean, like I said, Chris Carson, he finished 11th overall. That's missing a couple of games and having some workload being taken to Rashad Penny. So,
yeah. Other than that, though, yeah, no, I'm good, man.
all right, Queasy, what you got?
Russell Wilson.
Russell Wilson's the man.
Yeah.
Are we jumping onto the Rams right now?
Oh, you got
Yes,
a question
sir.
for me, or you want to go to the Rams?
I hit you with the question.
You ain't got no more questions?
No, I'm good with the
All right.
questions, man.
All right,
I'm
buddy.
good. I like
Let's
the
hear
Seattle Seahawks. I do like that
I do
team.
too.
Yeah.
Like them a lot. Let's hear them Rams, bud.
All right, man. I have the LA Rams. They were 9-7, ended the year 9-7. Second year missing the playoffs again. It's to me it's a very sad team, and I say that because they have a lot of weapons, but don't seem to, ever since the Super Bowl, don't seem to perform. So a lot of expectations from them, but nothing seems to pan out for them. They do have a young head coach, Sean McVay. Seems open-minded, very, very player-friendly coach. But again, they need something. They brought in a new offensive coordinator, Kevin O'Connell. They also brought in a new defensive coordinator, Brandon Staley. So they're hoping that with these 2 new guys, especially the offensive coordinator, Kevin O'Connell, that it's going to revive new life with Gurley, with Goff, and with Cook, just to get that offense going. They paid a lot of money into these players. 5 players are accounting for 50% of their cap. So they are definitely cap stricken right now. And they just picked up, of course, last year, picked up Jalen Ramsey and they had to give up a first-round pick. So they have no first-round pick in this upcoming draft. And they're planning on re-signing Jalen Ramsey. So, again, how they're going to do this with being cap stricken as they are, I guess that's why they get paid for that. I guess I can't see it happening though. But in the draft, they are going to hunt for an offensive tackle and an edge rusher. So right now they're looking at offensive tackle out of Auburn, Prince Tega Wangagu. Sounds like he can block. Okay, so also an edge rusher too, Darrell Taylor out of, drum roll please, out of Tennessee. Yeah. So we'll see which way they go with that. Again, they have no first round pick. I see them. They have no first round pick though, so this is gonna be tough. They are losing an offensive tackle. Whitworth, he's been there. He's a veteran that's been there, been very good, but probably gonna lose him with the free agency again. They can't sign everybody. Also, they have the defensive end of Fowler. They're gonna try to bring him back with the franchise friendly contract, but we'll see how that goes. Again, they have so many people they want to hold on to, but those 5 players just kind of stricken the whole thing. Right now for them, I see another 9-7 season. I don't see them turning it around much. I just think they are in a funk and can't find a way to get out of it. They got to definitely use Gurley more, push him. I know he's been injured, but they've got to get their money worth out of him, and pretty much get their money worth out of all of these players, of Goff and mainly him and Gurley, and see what happens after that. If nothing changes around after that, I can't see them being better than 9-7. As far as fantasy wise, this is very tricky here. Fantasy wise, with Goff, Gurley, and Cook, is high risk, low risk. Let me say that: low risk, high reward. And I'm saying that because they haven't performed to their money so far, and fantasy wise, worth their money. But if this new offensive coordinator can turn around things, you can scoop them up low and definitely get a lot of points out of them in fantasy. You guys got anything for me? Andrew?
Yeah, buddy. What went wrong with this team after the Super Bowl? I mean, I know we kind of had a similar discussion about the Falcons. They seem to have all the same pieces, and even in some cases, even on their defense, better pieces. But why did they just fall apart this season? What was missing?
I think it's always that disappointment after losing the Super Bowl. You just go into a funk. But besides that, I think the injury of Gurley, they believed in him so much and paid him so much that once he started getting injured and limited, they just felt their chances were just gone. And you know, once you feel like you're going to lose, it's almost inevitable.
Well, I mean, I know that he was saying all season. I know we heard it in press conference after press conference. I mean, it was being printed everywhere, being shown everywhere. Gurley was sitting over here, saying, "Hey, let me in, let me play. I'm good to go."
Mm-hmm.
And I know that McVay was, just kind of putting his hand up, like, "Yo, man, chill out. We got this. But obviously they don't.
Yeah.
So hopefully they change that around next season, and that would make Gurley, I think, a sneaky draft pick for your fantasy team.
And that's what I'm thinking too. Again, I think they will push him more this year, and again, try to get their money's worth out of him, and then just to see his limits or not, and see how that goes. Especially jump off the season with a good record. That'll be great for them and get them motivated.
Well, I mean, he's a good back, and I think he'll be willing to do whatever they ask of him, especially for what they're paying him. So, I mean, yeah, I agree. Put him out there, man.
Definitely, man. Jeremy, you got anything for me, bro?
Yeah, so, the Rams, they actually didn't have a terrible defense. And it looks like they finished second in the league as far as points being scored against them. So it's not like that was a huge deal. So how important do you think it is that Dante Fowler Jr. comes back? I know you're talking about him being a free agent. So, like, where would you put that as far as importance for the Rams taking that next step up in the division?
I would definitely try to re-sign Fowler and let that offensive tackle go. Again, that offensive tackle is older, and I think you can get another one within that draft. Fowler was great because Aaron Donald always required double teams, which opened up Fowler a lot.
Mm-hmm.
With bringing in Jalen Ramsey, he actually played pretty good for them too. He solidified that secondary. So bring Fowler back would help again to solidify that defense.
Yeah, I have to agree. As far as the Gurley stuff goes, he's quite an enigma, kind of a big question mark. Everybody at first was like, oh, it's the knee, obviously something's wrong with it. But then you hear the reports of him saying that he wanted to come in, like Andrew was alluding to, and all that. So you wonder, like, was that a McVay Gurley like button heads or something. Like I know that to me that plays out there like what really went on, and I've never heard. And of course Gurley's not been the same. I know they don't throw to him as much as they did that season, but they did so well. And who knows what these new coordinators are going to do?
Exactly. I think they try to be hesitant, and for him not to get hurt, and because they paid him so much money, and then so they're trying to keep him on the field as much as they can.
Right.
But I think they're really going to try to just push him next year. I mean, he's a back out of Alabama. So
What?
Where'd he go? Where'd he go, Andrew? Where'd he go? Say it. What is that? Is that an Alabama poster you got back there?
He's a good dog.
Oh, you did it, didn't you?
Hey, that's on me. That's on me.
I'm glad you did it, Queasy. Go ahead.
I will. I'm gonna get it in 2 seconds.
Oh.
But
what was that bet?
Hey, that USA girl is from Georgia.
Ooh.
You weren't gonna do it. That's why Queasy had it won. He must want a drink.
But I think that's it on the Rams. Again, I can't see much difference in them, man. I can hope that they're in the end. You, of course, by their names you can't see it, but their defensive coordinator and their offensive coordinator, and of course their coach, are all very young. That good or bad, of course you never know, but they are all very young.
I like McVay too.
I do. I have nothing against him in a sense, but
I like him as a young coach. I think who knows what kind of coach he's going to be in the future, but he obviously did very well, and now he's obviously followed that up with adversity. So I'd like to see how he bounces back. And obviously they cleared house and brought in new coaching staff. So I think maybe if you see them do just as bad, if not worse, he may be fired. That's kind of how you see that happen. It's like once they clean house, if it's the same, he's probably gone, which I hope not, because he's so young. He's obviously got a lot of coaching ability. So hopefully that doesn't happen.
This seems like a trend that we're seeing in the younger coaches. They seem like they're actually willing to cut ties with coordinators more quickly and more frequently to keep the fan base happy, to try to get the wins in, keep the front office happy. Like we were talking about the Bears. They were having issues on offense, so they basically cut like most of their offensive staff, brought in all new guys. That's you got to give them props for identifying their issues and not just trying to sit and track mud through the house. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. I think that's kind of the league now too. Like it's not like what they would say your dad's NFL anymore. Like you don't see a head coach with his whole coaching assistants sticking around for 10, 15, 20 years. If they're not winning, they're not happy. And if they don't see the writing on the wall, it's probably going to happen sooner rather than later if they're not given wins. So,
exactly.
Yep. All right, Andrew. Looks like you're up, buddy. Cardinals.
Last and most certainly least are the Arizona Cardinals with a record of 5-10-1. Thanks, Lions. Their head coach, Cliff Kingsbury. You spell that with 2 Ks. Yeah, that's weird. Yeah. He's been their head coach for 1 season. He coached at Texas Tech from 2013 to 2018, and he also serves as the team's primary offensive coordinator. Defensive coordinator is Vance Joseph, and they have a passing coordinator in Tom Clement. Seems like every team has a passing coordinator now, and it's a big deal. So,
True.
Kingsbury, he likes to run the air raid offense. And it seems like it's ever evolving. Like it's never necessarily the same offense, one game in, one game out. He changes it up, and you can tell. They like to go out of the spread formation. Kingsbury is trying a very lax style of coaching that draws a lot of criticism across the NFL, but also a lot of praise, I guess, from players. Like Queasy was saying earlier about McVay, he's very, very player friendly. And his air raid offense seems to open up the running game, giving the Cards an average 5 yards per carry.
Oh, wow.
That's pretty wild. And you'll see where a lot of that's coming from here in a second. But first, let me hit on Kyler Murray, their phenom first overall quarterback.
Little man Murray.
Little man Murray. Oh, he threw for 20 touchdowns versus 12 interceptions. Rookie numbers, about what you'd expect. He had 349 completions from 542 attempts. That's a lot of pass attempts. For 64% completion rate. He threw for 3,722 yards, rushed for 544, and 4 touchdowns. A little added bonus there. But here's where things get interesting. We're moving on from Kyler Murray, and we're going to talk about Kenyon Drake.
Okay.
You don't talk about a running back coming on at the end of the season. Whew.
He did.
This dude played 8 games for the Cardinals. He had, check this out, 123 attempts for 643 yards and 8 touchdowns. He averaged 1 touchdown per game at least. And we know, there was one game. I know he was very slow to start there in the beginning. They didn't have him on the field as much. But there was one game he had, 4 touchdowns? The dude just went like bananas. What was it, against like the 49ers or something, man?
It's against the Browns.
Was it the Browns?
Yeah.
Man, he went nuts.
22 carries. Yeah.
I know Travis started him against you. No. He was on his bench that week, and he was
On the
losing fun about
bench.
it. He was on
That's
everybody's
right.
bench that week, man.
I mean, he deserved to be. Before that, he had 11 carries for 37 yards and no touchdowns.
Yeah,
Who's starting
man.
him that game?
The dude wasn't getting any love.
Nope.
But anyway, when you break the numbers down, he scored a touchdown every 15.375 attempts. So you hand the guy the ball 15 times, he's scoring you 1 touchdown. He had 35 targets for 28 receptions, and an 80% catch rate, which is pretty good for a running back. Yeah, I know. You wouldn't really think of Kenyon Drake being used in that manner in a receiving back type role, but apparently he's very good at everything he does, and he was very undervalued at Miami.
Yeah.
The thing about Kenyon Drake, though, is he is a free agent this season. And with a cap space of $39,708,710, Kenyon Drake is looking to go elsewhere, unfortunately. So hopefully the Cardinals can find a way to retain him. I really like him in this scheme, in this system. He can be a very successful running back here. But as far as where he may go, I have no idea. I couldn't tell you. I mean, there are a couple teams looking for running backs, but just based on an 8-game sample where he was really only used for 4 or 5 games, I don't think he's going to get the kind of money he's probably going to be looking for. Other free agents of note are Brett Hundley, their quarterback. We remember seeing him start for Green Bay last season or the season before when Aaron Rodgers went down. I think he started for 7 or 8 games. Dude was bad, real bad.
Mm-hmm.
Charles Clay, their tight end, is a free agent. And their center, Shipley, he is a free agent as well. I think they need to keep that guy. They got to do something about this offensive line. It's bad. It's real bad. They have the number 8 pick in the first round and the number 40 pick in the second round. And I'm going to say offensive line twice. They need 2 offensive linemen. I'm not looking up the specific needs. I know they're hopefully going to re-sign the center, but give me guards, give me tackles, give me offensive linemen. The third round, pick number 72. If they're losing Kenyon Drake, I'm not sure what exactly they're going to do about David Johnson. I know he's got 2 more seasons on his contract, 2020 and 2021. I don't know if they're looking to trade him away. I know he's been very injury prone. When he's healthy, he's good, but he's just not healthy. And some team in need of a running back might get those starry eyes looking at David Johnson. But if they decide to let him go or trade him away to free up some cap space or something, and maybe they go with a running back in the third round, maybe a guy that would slip down there would be Najee Harris out of Alabama. Dude's not getting a whole lot of talk, but he's a very talented running back. I've seen him do a lot of crazy stuff this past season, stuff that highlight reel stuff. And then maybe in the fourth round, a tight end, because that's something that seemed like they have a strong need for a really good tight end. I know Charles Clay is going to be a free agent this season. Maybe they don't re-sign him. Guy I was looking at was Hunter Bryant out of Washington. Kyler Murray should be a good fantasy asset next season. He got some experience under his belt. Hopefully they're going to improve this offense a little bit and tailor it around him as they should. Cliff Kingsbury seems like a decently smart coach to, the kind of guy that would do something like that. Um, this team can support one good fantasy running back, and I would say two good receivers. Looking at you, Larry Fitzgerald, in your 35th season, and I like Christian Kirk as well. Yeah, Christian Kirk did very good this season. He did pretty good last season too. I think he's going to be a good dynasty wide receiver, a guy you can hold on to for years. Look for them to improve in this tough division, but probably still stay in last. I think the record's going to get a little better, but I don't think they're going to be able to pass the Rams. I'm going to call them 6-10. Couple of IDP options to look at. I wrote this at the bottom, kind of a last scribbled note. Chandler Jones. You guys know much about this guy?
He's a linebacker, if I'm correct.
He is a linebacker.
Yeah, I heard him. He's pretty good.
This guy had 19 sacks, 8 forced fumbles, and 26 quarterback hits.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
How was this guy not the number one linebacker? Man. A couple other guys to take a look at. Safety, Buda Baker. He's always, he's a ball hawk man.
What was his name?
Buda Baker.
Okay.
Buda Baker.
Buda Baker. And, of course, the linebacker, Jordan Hicks. He's always a good IDP fantasy asset. Guys, their offense was, middle of the road, 16th for points scored, and points against, man, they were 28th. Their defense was so bad. But, 6-10, I think that's really about the ceiling for them this next season. You guys got anything?
Yeah, I got some stuff. So, I've seen some crazy stuff. So I know Kyler Murray. Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. Did he win Rookie of the Year?
He did.
So he won Rookie of the Year. So he's pretty good. I mean, he's a little short guy out there running for his life because his line's terrible. They might pick up maybe that Tristan Wirfs tackle from Iowa in the draft. But what's interesting to me is what they've got him projected now, or what they've got them picking, is CeeDee Lamb. Reuniting with Murray. And how cool would that be? And you would say, well, yeah, but they've got Christian Kirk and they got old man Fitzgerald, but they run the air raid offense system for a reason. They want to throw the ball. So who are you going to cover in that offense? That's just something I thought was interesting, how they've got CeeDee Lamb right now penciled in a lot of spots.
And I agree, but man, you've got to protect this quarterback. And
agreed.
With what they have in their cap space, they can go after an offensive lineman in free agency if they like. But, they're not going to be able to patch this line, all the holes in it, with just free agency. They're going to have to look at drafting some good linemen.
Even then, if you draft them, that's not going to fix it right away, And like you said, it's
there's no guarantee. And those guys are going to be young. They're going to be rookies. They're going to have a learning curve, of course. By the end of the season, they'll probably be halfway decent. But you've got to protect this quarterback. You let Josh Rosen go so that you could draft another franchise quarterback. So protect the kid. Let him do what he's supposed to do. Let the plays play out, and you're going to win a couple more games.
Yeah. I think that offensive system really helps Murray, though, because he's a shorter guy for one, and because their offensive line's not great. So he's in shotgun formation a lot, so that gives him that extra little depth where he can see over the line. And when he sees the pressure coming, he's got the mobility. I think it's a really good offensive system for him. So he can survive with that terrible line, but not if they want to win the division,
He can survive, got a lot of work. But do you want to put your quarterback running for his life on every single play? I mean,
you don't want to, but if you have to.
I mean, while I would love to see Kyler Murray to CeeDee Lamb all day long, and they are going to have to replace Larry Fitzgerald. He is older. I don't see him playing another season. Like, come on, dude. But I just, man, they can't afford to not patch this line.
Agreed. But there's a lot of good tackles and stuff. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what they do.
Yeah.
That's what I get.
Queasy, you got anything, buddy?
I got two things. With David Johnson, I think their situation is either going to be, they got to have a serious conversation whether to trade David Johnson and try to trade him and then keep Drake, or let Drake go and then, of course, definitely keep Johnson. There's no doing both. I don't think they can do both or would do both of them. And my other thing is, Andrew, cue the music.
Yeah, there we go. Bottoms up. That's for that bit. There we go.
What was
Georgia running back.
Oh, yeah. Gotcha, buddy. Well, yeah, man, I definitely, man, I am fed up with David Johnson. Let him go. He's injury prone. He's that beat up old truck running down the road that some redneck's trying to sell for $10,000. You know, they got wheels are
That's worth
flying off
$1,000.
of it. It's spitting and sputtering, and you know it barely runs. That's David Johnson, man. Kenyon Drake, he's the Corvette sitting in the driveway.
Yeah, I don't have their ages in front of me. But I'm really thinking that Drake is older than Johnson, but I don't know.
Kenyon Drake got drafted in 2016, and if I'm not mistaken, I think David Johnson also got drafted in 2016. Let me do a check on that. No, it might not have been 2016. Let me check real quick.
We'll do a little research right fast. Research break. Play cue the elevator music. Yeah, David Johnson, man, that guy. You know, I took a really late round flyer on him in fantasy for his upside because you know Arizona. I mean, who did they have at the time? And then he burnt me. I mean, it was a late round, so it really didn't matter. But I had more expectations for him.
2015.
He was drafted 2015. David Wilson.
And Drake was 2017.
2016.
Okay.
So
not that far off.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
But you can obviously see the difference in the way that they play.
Yeah.
I think Kenyon Drake was way undervalued whenever he was traded to the Cards.
I mean, they never did anything with him with the Dolphins.
Well, that's the thing. Nobody ever does
flashes.
anything with the Dolphins. Look at Minka Fitzpatrick, man. Dolphins traded him away.
Shoot, that was the biggest free agent pickup there.
He's sitting up here. He's sitting up here in the High Life in Pittsburgh, and they're like, "Oh, you're gonna be the next Palomalu," and he's just like, "Yeah, interception." Nah, dude. Miami burns talent. They waste it. They destroy it.
Definitely.
I don't know if it's a mentality thing. Nobody wants to be there, or if it's a coaching thing. But
I think it's more a coaching thing.
I do too.
Well, I know they had Adam Gase down there for a while, and he was just shipping dudes off left and right. Yeah, that dude's garbage.
I don't like Adam Gase.
I don't think anybody likes Adam Gase. They tolerate him. They don't like him.
He always has a good sales pitch. Keep getting jobs.
I know, right?
All right, well, that wraps us up, huh? That wraps us up for another episode. So. Yeah, and make sure everybody goes and, like I said, subscribes and follows us, and keep giving us some advice and feedback. And
got one more thing, Jeremy.
Interact with the guys. Time for listener mail.
What's up?
Everybody listening, make sure you tweet us at 03PT conversion. That's 3-point conversion, and ask us a couple of questions. Shoot us some mail. We want a mailbag segment. We have to have questions to answer these questions.
Go for 3.
Go for 3.
Go for 3.
Woo. All right.
Make sure to follow the 3-point conversion host on Twitter.
Blue at Rastalion1131, Jeremy at Checkerboard J, Andrew at Jedi Quarterback.